Good morning, YouTube. It is 10 a.m. in the great state of Texas, and we're doing an epoxy project. Last week it was a wood bowl. This week we're back to epoxy, and we're going to be using some fine blue glitter, and we're going to use my favorite pigment, Black Diamond Deep Sea Blue. So I've used some blue pigment and some blue glitter in the past, but this is the first time I'm going to be using this brand of pigment for this project, or at least I think it is. I do so many of these projects, it's hard to tell what I do and don't. But overall, you could tell this is going to be an amazing project. I love blue. It's probably my favorite color, and I love doing these projects with glitter. Always a good thing. So 5-quart bucket, obviously here we got the wood blank in there. Going to go ahead and add our pigment in there. Just a little dab will do you. You know what? Really, a little dab will do you with that Black Diamond pigment. But I probably am using a little bit too much. So give it a quick stir. Make sure everything else is nice and good. 2.5 quarts obviously is what we're using here. 64 ounces of resin. Mix everything up. We're using East Coast resin on this one because that is my go-to resin for most of my projects. Because I wish Total Boat would sponsor me one of these days. It's going to happen. So after we got everything nice and mixed up, you can see this beautiful blue color. We're going to get everything nice and in there and scrape that off the top because that's where the faceplate's going to go. And then we're going to put this in the pressure pot 4.5 hours. And this is the blank. Beautiful casting. Absolutely gorgeous casting. You can just tell by looking at it, no bubbling. That nice glitter comes out. It's a finer glitter, so it floats a lot better in the resin. And just gorgeous, gorgeous casting. It's so smooth. I didn't even want to do anything to it, but obviously you can't do anything with a bowl blank like that. So 4.5 hours, everything just came together. Love it when a plan comes together. So thumbs up again. So what we're going to go ahead and do, what you didn't see is I had to go back and use the sander to get everything nice and even to put the faceplate on. You could tell the waste block was a little bit tilted from when it was floating in the resin a little bit. So just went ahead, sanded. You know I hate sanding, so I didn't even bother showing that part. So once we got the faceplate on, now we got that on the lathe, and we are going to get everything going. So getting that superficial layer off like we do with most of our projects. Got my face shield, got my respirator on, and we are working. So you can tell already by the good shavings that we're getting. A little bit wobbly here on the actual lathe itself. I actually had to push my hip up against the wall to push it up against the workbench to stabilize everything. But overall, that wasn't too much of a problem. Beautiful shavings on this, by the way. I think I did this in either October, November, or December. You guys are probably watching this in June. I know you guys for a fact are watching it during the summer of 2022. So I did this all the way back in 2021. I load these projects onto my computer, and sometimes I just don't get to the commentary after the editing portion of it. So you and me are watching this together right now. So this is a first take commentary. But from what I can remember, really easy project. Not a whole lot of problems with this one. Beautiful ribbons we're getting off, and now we're just taking that superficial layer and we're just going to take the round carbide tool, get everything nice and flat so we can go ahead and create the mortise. You can see my giant head in the way, which is kind of taken away from the video, but I think that adds a little bit of a character to it because I obviously am not a professional photographer, even though I've been doing YouTube for like 3.5 years at this point. So once I got everything nice and even, now we're just coming back doing some finer work. Again, there was a little portion of it that hadn't been gouged out yet or smoothed out, and we're just trying to get that layer off so we can get this thing flipped over on the headstock and start the gouging portion of it. But beautiful, beautiful setup. This epoxy is probably one of the better setups I've ever had. It's so smooth. So now we're going to go ahead, once we got everything nice and adjusted, got everything nice, smooth and round, cylindrical. Now we're just going to make the mortise. And this part went relatively easy from what I could remember. The great thing about using this technique where I'm using that, you'll see it in the bottom. It's just a cube of clear resin instead of that giant waste block. That's another reason why I like to go back and repeat some of these. So if you've seen some of my other videos where I would put the waste block on the very bottom, the aesthetic of the bowl would look good, but there's this big piece of pine board that just kind of takes away from the overall aesthetic. So I've been using this clear piece of epoxy on the bottom to let the actual waste block float. It helps take the aesthetic to a different level so you don't get that pine look to it. But overall, really happy with the mortise on this one. Better technique, obviously. So once we got the faceplate off, we got it reversed in the chuck. Now we're just going to smooth out the frontal portion of it. See these good ribbons and shavings. Again, there's my forehead. And we're getting just good material off. I want to say this is probably one of the better blanks that I've ever done because the epoxy set up so good. And what I've learned is temperature and mixing affects the epoxy, obviously. So for you woodworkers out there, you know, the temperature of your epoxy, how you stir it, how you set it up, definitely affects your overall product. But you know, I typically will do 4.5 hours in the pressure pot. That's kind of my go-to time. A little bit below 60 psi if you're curious. But man, this is absolutely gorgeous. I love this blank. And the end of the project, absolutely gorgeous. So once we got that all finished, now the easy part starts. This is why I like to use pine board as my waste block, because it just goes through butter. You can see how fast and easy we're just getting to the bottom. And the other great thing about having that small piece of resin on the bottom, you know you're like kind of toward the mortise once you start to break through the actual pine board. So you know you've hit the bottom of the bowl, so you have a better idea. So now you can start to work the edges, which worked really easy. I switched between a couple of different bowl gouges on this one, using a multitude of tools, just depending on how it felt on the chisels, because you got to listen to what your chisels are saying. Take small, easy strokes. I learned this from doing multiple projects like this. Just really have to take your time, smooth it out. This part takes about 30-40 minutes, maybe an hour, just depends on what the epoxy's feeling that day. But this went really smooth. Probably one of my smoother projects. You can see here we're basically almost done with it, and I'm just working the lip edges here with the different types of chisels, round carbide tool, and the actual gouges itself. But you can see the good ribbon material there on the lathe. That's how you know you've got a good set of material. When you get ribbons like that, you know the epoxy's good and your tools are sharp. Really good. So now we're just doing some of the finer detail, and we're almost there. I want to say that, but this is the first time I've watched this edit since I've completed it, so I don't know how long this will take, but hopefully not too much longer here. But you can see I'm getting sprayed in the face with those shavings, which is always a good thing. It's better to get shavings than that dust that you typically will get sometimes when the epoxy doesn't set up. You get this crystallization glass type of effect sometimes, and I remember in my early woodworking days I got a lot of that because I didn't know how to use a pressure pot, and I actually didn't have a pressure pot like the first year and a half I was doing this. So really get a pressure pot. It really makes a difference for your casting. So here we are. You can see a little bit of the wood that's left in there. So I'm just taking my smaller carbide tool, or I would call this my medium carbide tool, and just really getting just some finer edge work, slowly taking layer by layer off, not getting too aggressive with it, just coming back, hitting it back and forth, stopping the lathe, getting an idea for what we're doing, because sometimes with those it'll get a little sketchy if you just go a little too deep with the gouging. So here's the ribbons. Tons of material came off, and you can see these big bunches of ribbons and shavings. So that's how you definitely know that you had good material. Definitely one of my better projects. I can't say that enough. I think I said that like 50 times already. So we're going to get everything cleaned up, and then we're going to start my favorite part, sanding, because you guys know I love sanding so much. My favorite thing. But on these projects, when it's all epoxy, the wet sanding is probably my favorite. You see the pop of the epoxy when you're doing that. So everything's cleaned up, or maybe not. Okay, now I remember. Okay, so there was a little bit of a lip on the outer side of the bowl, so I did come back and did some finer edge work. I probably should have done that when the bowl blank wasn't gouged out, so I was risking having this completely shatter, which has happened in the past. So just went back and just did a little bit finer edge work before the sanding. And when you get stuff like that, sanding can fix those little gouges and little humps you have in the lips of the bowl, but I just decided to risk the biscuit, I guess, and just went for it, and I guess it paid off. So starting from 340, going to work all the way up to 1500 as far as sanding. Then we're just going to wet sand it, and then bam, look how beautiful this looks, even before we hit it with the wax. And bam, I'm so proud I had a beer, Dos Equis. Love that beer, by the way. So getting everything nice and polished. Now we're just throwing on that beautiful wood wax. Absolutely love how this turned out. Gorgeous project. I don't even know what to call it. This is just a blue beauty is what I'm going to call this one, I think. I don't know. I'll come up with something better. So here we are toward the end of the video. Everything is nice, neat, and even. Just gorgeous how this turned out. Can't say that enough. I'm always proud when I make something that's really good, because I'll do some bowl projects that don't work out as well, and I'll be like, oh, this is good, but this is absolutely gorgeous, absolutely better. Definitely did this one right. Can't wait to do this again. Look at that. Just look at the sparkle. Look at that. Absolutely gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. That glitter, that blue, that black diamond pigment, I'm telling you, if you've never worked with it, absolutely worth it. Some of the best pigments I've ever worked with ever. So hope you guys liked this week's project. Like I said, I did this back in the fall, winter of 2021. You guys are watching this in the summer of 2022. So hope everybody's staying hydrated out there. Hope everybody's having a great summer. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, and I'll see you guys in the next project. Peace. All right, so project is done. And this, by far, is one of the most beautiful bowls I have ever made on the channel. This thing looks just gorgeous. And I am getting better. This is I've been doing this for 3 years now. I think I'm starting to become a lot better at doing these projects. This looks absolutely beautiful. That blue color with the glitter in it, with the marble-esque type presentation. Really took my time on this one. Wow, this looks absolutely gorgeous. One of the best projects I've ever have made. You guys are watching this probably in the summer of 2022. Today is December 18th, 2021. It is absolutely freezing here in Texas. Just a little late night project, just finishing out the sanding. But wow, this thing turned out absolutely gorgeous. And I'm going to start giving away these projects. If that's something that you guys would be interested in, leave a comment. I don't know. You guys are obviously watching this 6 months into the future, so don't know exactly where I'll be or where we're going to be as far as the channel is. But man, I can't wait to start just giving these things away. But it looks absolutely beautiful. One of the best bowls I've ever done. Beautiful color. Love it, absolutely. So hope you guys got something out of it. Hope you guys are having a great summer. I'm going to try to warm up here in Texas. It's freezing, obviously, but hope you liked it. Hope you got something out of it. Don't forget to subscribe, like it, comment, all that good shit. And I'll see you guys in the next project. All right, peace.